Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Handlebar ASMR. Now this video is the second in a 10-part series of my favorite creepy or really weird fairy tales. So if you haven't watched the first in this series, which is the Goose Girl, be sure to go back and watch that. And this one is actually on the really weird side of things. Number 9 is Hans, my Hedgehog. Once upon a time, there was a peasant who had money and land enough, but as rich as he was, there was still something missing from his happiness. He had no children with his wife, and often he said when he went to the city, the other peasants would mock and ask him why he had no children. He finally became angry, and when he returned home, he said, "I will have a child, even if it is a hedgehog." Then his wife had a baby, and the top half was a hedgehog, and the bottom half was a boy. When she saw the baby, she was horrified and said, "Now, see this is what you've wished upon us." The man said, "It cannot be helped. The boy must be baptized, but we cannot ask anyone to be its godfather." The woman said, "And the only name we can give him is Hans, my Hedgehog." When he was baptized, the pastor said because of his quills he cannot be given an ordinary bed, so they put a little straw behind the stove and laid him in it, and he could not drink from his mother, for he would have stuck her with his quills. So he lay there behind the stove for 8 years, and his father grew tired of him and thought only if he would die, but he did not die, he just lay there. Now it happened that there was a fair in the city, and the peasant wanted to go. He asked his wife what he should bring her back. "A little meat, some bread rolls, and things for my household," she said. And then he asked the servant girl, and she wanted a pair of slippers and some fancy stockings. So it looks like probably the whole thing of the husband sleeping with the help has been around for a really long time. So finally he also said to Hans, my Hedgehog, "What would you like?" "Father," he said, "bring me some bagpipes." When the peasant returned home, he gave his wife what he had bought her, meat and bread rolls. Then he gave the servant girl some slippers and her fancy stockings. And finally he went behind the stove and gave Hans, my Hedgehog, the bagpipes. When Hans, my Hedgehog, saw them, he said, "Father, go to the blacksmith and have my cock rooster shod. Then I will ride away and never come back again." The father was happy to get rid of him, so he had his rooster shod, and when it was done, Hans, my Hedgehog, climbed on top of it and rode away. He took some pigs and donkeys with him to tend in the forest. In the forest, the rooster flew into a tall tree with him, and there it sat, watching over the donkeys and the pigs. He sat there for years until finally he had grown quite large. His father knew nothing about him while sitting in the tree. He played his bagpipes and he made beautiful music. One day a king came by. He was lost and heard the music. He was amazed to hear it, and he sent a servant to look around to where it was coming from. He looked there and he saw only a little animal sitting high in a tree on a rooster, and it was a hedgehog making the music. The king said to the servant that he should ask him why he is sitting there and if he knew the way back to the kingdom. Then Hans, my Hedgehog, climbed down from the tree and told him that he would show him the way if the king would promise him in writing to give him the first thing that greeted him in the royal court upon his arrival. The king thought, "I can do that easily enough. Hans, my Hedgehog, cannot understand writing, so I can put down whatever I want to." Then the king took the pen and ink and wrote something, and after he had done so, Hans, my Hedgehog, showed him the way, and he arrived safely home. His daughter saw him coming from afar and was so overjoyed that she ran to meet him and kissed him. He thought about Hans, my Hedgehog, and told her what had happened, that he was supposed to have promised the first thing that greeted him to the strange animal that rode a rooster and made beautiful music. But instead he had written that this would not happen, and the princess was very happy about this and said that it was a good thing, for she would not have gone with him in any event. So Hans returned and attended his donkeys and pigs, and was in good cheer and sat in the tree blowing on his black bagpipes. messengers, and he too got lost and did not know the way back home because the forest was so large. He too heard the beautiful music from afar and asked one of his messengers to go and see what it was and where it was coming from. The messenger ran to the tree where he saw Hans my Hedgehog astride a cock rooster. The messenger asked what he was doing up there. "I am tending my donkeys and pigs." "What is it you want?" replied Hans my Hedgehog. The messenger said that they were lost and couldn't find their way back to the kingdom, and asked him if he could show them the way. Then Hans my Hedgehog climbed down from his tree with his rooster and told the old king that he would show him the way if he would give him the thing that he first met at home before the royal castle. The king said yes and signed a promise to Hans my Hedgehog. When that was done, Hans my Hedgehog rode ahead on his rooster, showing him the way, and the king safely reached his kingdom. When the king arrived at his court, there was great joy. Now he had an only daughter who was very beautiful. She ran out to him, threw her arms around his neck and kissed him, and was ever so happy to see her father back. She asked him where he'd been during his long absence, and he told her how he had lost his way and almost not made it home again, but that he was making his way through the great forest and come upon a half hedgehog, half human, astride a rooster, sitting in a tall tree and making beautiful music, who had shown him the way, but whom had promised whatever he first met at the royal court. It was she herself, and he was terribly sorry. But she promised that she would go with him when he came, for she loved her father. Hans my Hedgehog tended his pigs, and the pigs had more pigs until there were so many that the whole forest was full. Then Hans my Hedgehog let his father know that he should empty out all the stalls in the village, because he was coming with such a large herd of pigs that everyone who wanted to would be able to take part in the slaughter. It saddened the father to hear this, for he had thought that Hans my Hedgehog had long since died. But Hans my Hedgehog mounted his cock rooster, drove the pigs ahead of himself to the village, and there had them butchered. What a slaughter! What a commotion! They could hear the noise for 2 hours away. Afterwards Hans my Hedgehog said, "Father, have my cock rooster shot a second time at the blacksmith's. Then I will ride away and not come back again as long as I live." So the father had the cock rooster shot and was happy that Hans my Hedgehog was not coming back. Hans my Hedgehog rode to the first kingdom, the king that had ordered that if anyone should approach who was carrying bagpipes and riding on a rooster, that he should be shot, struck down, and stabbed to prevent him from entering the castle. Thus, when Hans my Hedgehog rode up, they attacked him with bayonets, but he spurred his rooster on, flew over the gate, and up to the king's window. Landing there, he shouted to him to give him what he had promised, or it would cost him his daughter and their lives. The king told the princess to go out to him in order to save his life, and her own as well. She put on a white dress, and her father gave her a carriage of 6 horses, magnificent servants, money, and property. She climbed aboard, and Hans my Hedgehog took his place beside her with his rooster and bagpipes. They said farewell and drove off. The king thought he would never see them again. However, it did not go as he thought, for when he had traveled a short distance from the city, Hans my Hedgehog pulled off her beautiful clothes and stuck her with his quills until she was bloody all over. Then, as a reward for your deceit, go away. I do not want you. With that, he sent her back home, and she was cursed as long as she lived. Hans my Hedgehog astride his cock rooster and carrying his bagpipes rode to the second kingdom, where he had also helped the king find his way. This one, in contrast, had ordered that if anyone looking like Hans my Hedgehog should arrive, he should be saluted and brought to the royal castle with honors and a military escort. When the princess saw him, she was horrified, because he looked so strange, but she thought that nothing could be done about it, because she had promised her father to go with him. She welcomed Hans my Hedgehog, and they were married. When they had taken to the royal table and sat next to him, they ate and drank. That evening, when it was time to go to bed, she was afraid of his quills, but he told her to have no fear, princess saw what had happened, she was overjoyed, and they got up and ate and drank. Now their wedding was celebrated for real, and Hans my Hedgehog inherited the old man's kingdom. Some years later, he traveled with his wife to his father and said that he was his son. But the father said that he did not have a son. He had one, but he had been born with quills like a hedgehog and had gone off into the world. Then he said that he was the one that the old father rejoiced and returned with him to the kingdom. My tale is done and gone to Guccian's home. That's a weird one. I do hope you enjoyed it though, and if you did enjoy it, be sure to give me a like, and if you enjoy my channel, be sure to give me a subscribe, and most importantly, join me for another episode of Handlebar ASMR. Thanks again.
Subscribe.
Subscribe.
Subscribe.